Did you get a chance to bring your film to North Carolina before, when it was first released 10 years ago?
We actually weren't there, but we did a Q&A with Rex afterwards. Marina and I did for the audience, because we weren't actually physically there.
Right. So tell me, let's quickly talk about when the film first came out 10 years ago. Take me to that climate as filmmakers telling this kind of story. What was that like for you?
When we released the film?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was very exciting. It was the first film that I had released since Little Man, which was in 2005, 6, 7. And so this was 2000, was it 2010, Jane? It was 2010, right?
I think so,
yeah.
I think that's right.
I just remember the thing that I remember the most was how exciting it was to do Frameline and Outfest. Both the audience's response to the film was awesome, and the theaters were sold out and super well attended. It was super, super exciting, and it was really well received. So that's always makes it much more fun.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Outfest.
Pardon me?
Say that again, Jane?
I missed Outfest because my phone had fallen. But I was actually, I was flying in for Frameline, and I remember we got lost. I don't know, Nicole, we couldn't get cabs in San Francisco. And we got Nicole in a cab. I think Nicole and Marina jumped in a cab, and then there was a bunch of us. We were like, okay, we're walking. And it was a long walk. Let me tell you, it was a long walk. And we made it right as the movie started rolling. And it was just in time for me to see my company name come up on the screen. So at least it all worked out that way. But yeah, it was so much fun. It was a packed theater, and the response was really lovely. And I think that it was a different time. Obviously, I think that the way LGBTQ films are received these days is a whole lot different. In terms when you're talking general public. Than it was back then, which I think in some ways made the film a little even more impactful, because there's a lot of noise out there now. There's a lot of content, which is great. But I think that at that time, this was something special, because it really spoke to people's desire to be in love and to have, happiness ever after, that whole thing. And I think it really resonated in a way that might not if it today.
I also think there was this whole gender fluidity, sexual fluidity on the spectrum thing that was happening on Oprah. And I remember Marina and I ended up meeting with the women that were on Oprah. One of them was a woman who had come out. They did a whole big profile on her, and it was married women who realized they were lesbian and fell in love, and sort of in a later time in their life after their children were grown. And so the timing, the zeitgeist at that time was a lot about women realizing their sexuality. And so I think from both of those standpoints, that's one of the reasons it was so successful.
It also, it seemed to me, at least at the time in 2010, we didn't see a lot of exploration of faith quite the same way, faith and spirituality quite the same way you address in this movie, in that it's not, someone fighting against a church in particular. It touched the subject very differently. Tell me about that in 2010, touching on that subject in the way that you did in this film.
Well, part of that was actually a product of this story is very, very based on Marina's and my relationship and how we met and how we fell in love. And so much of it is actually lifted from our experiences and then changed. Like, we had 6 kids between us, and we knew that was insanity. Jane's like, no more kids.
No. She's like, okay, we have this idea, and it's 6 children, and I'm like, no, it's a romance. No, it's not 6 kids.
And they did that on television in the 70s.
Yes, we were the lesbian version of the Brady Bunch for sure. So most of that component was part of hers. Her husband was the second person involved in her church. And they were very, I remember when we first started seeing each other, one of the big things she walked out of, that scene where you see her walking out of, they're talking about gay marriage and how it should never happen and how it's an abomination and stuff along those lines. So a lot of that stuff was motivated by the real events that took place in marinas in my life. And then, of course, we had to change them. You know, Jane would say, look, we can't afford to do it this way, so one kid will have to do. But pretty much the story beats were marinas in my relationship.
Tell me about bringing the film out again for its 10th anniversary. Now you're not just showing it at screenings at LGBT film festivals. You have really wide platform on streaming availability for people to watch in their living rooms across America during the pandemic.
Yeah,
so
I'll let Jane take that.
Tell me about that, Jane.
Well, you know, we just had a long consideration about how we wanted to see this film re-released, how we wanted to reach a wider audience, and we had a long talk with our distributor and had a long decision about whether, you know, going with them was the right way to go, that maybe we would be better off on our own. But they were really adamant that they could find us a platform that was going to be a larger platform and put out in a way that was going to be more capable of reaching a larger audience. And, you know, they came through. Wolf came through with Hulu. We just found out this weekend that we're number 3 on the LGBTQ list of movies on the scroll, which means we're doing really, really well with them. A lot of people are popping in to see it. Mm-hmm. And I'm hopeful that Hulu will take us not out of the LGBTQ scroll, but also add us into just their romances, or, you know, however they want to, I don't know what their breakdowns are, but, you know, add us into their romance or their drama, or, you know, something where we actually have a chance to reach outside the LGBTQ community, because I really think this film is just about falling in love. It's about the struggles that you face when when you have sort of adult problems, i.e. you're married, but you're unhappy in it, or, you know, whatever it is. These are things that a lot of people can relate to. So I'm really hopeful that once they realize that we're getting that much traction and that there's that much interest in the movie, and maybe even the IPs can show that it's not just coming from people who traditionally watch LGBTQ movies, then maybe we'll get an opportunity to, you know, expand out and touch more people.
I think their algorithms are pretty sophisticated to be able to determine that. Not just on Hulu, but you're available on Apple TV and some of the other platforms for rental. If someone doesn't happen to have Hulu,
right? And
that's
video
for a film that's 10 years old.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, to some degree, we've been helped a little bit by, I think, by the pandemic. You know, I mean,
people are starved for content, good content, good storytelling. Yeah,
right. They've burned through a lot of stuff, and, you know, their choices are either get some new stuff on there, or everybody's going to be stuck watching the crap that they've decided to put on because they had nothing else to put on. So I think that we stand out in that way, and I think we sort of benefit from that, because then there are a lot of people that haven't seen this movie that could discover it. You know, I think that's helpful.
And I think it would be a mistake to think, oh, well, this is a 10-year-old snapshot of lesbian experience in the United States, and that, you know, so much has changed. Well, yes, a lot has changed, but it's still a story about people.
Right.
Talk to me about this story.
Very interestingly, I had said I think Jane and I had this conversation with somebody else. I'm not exactly sure, but I was saying their wardrobe still looks like it's today to me.
Yeah.
And when I was watching it back down and doing the commentary, I was like, this actually is really still relevant in a lot of ways. And I think
I think a lot of decisions you made, Nicole, make it fresh still today. The color palette, is very fresh. It's not there are people, you know, every not even every decade, every couple of years, you'll see sort of a color template that comes out, and everybody sort of follows it, and it really marks a movie. But Nicole made the choice to be to go very realistic but rich, right? It doesn't feel like a sort of a grungy kind of film. It still has that elevated production value, but it's very natural and it's very real. I think that was a smart move. It carried through.
No, Jane, I think you're right, because back then was the green indie, made it like really grunge, and that was the thing. And I always say to the colorist, I say to Jane, I just want it to be really pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when you're doing a love story, sometimes it just has to be pretty.
Yeah, well, I'm just into visual beauty. I don't like grungy stuff. I don't like to watch movies that are all greenish looking, because that was the look du jour with all the, young filmmakers. It just doesn't work for me from that standpoint. But I think you're right, Jane, and I never even thought of that.
Yeah.
Why it stays sort of, because it's colored like most regular movies are colored,
Yeah, it feels
and there's something classic about the way the camera moves and delights in the faces and bodies of the characters. It's very classic romance kind of take on it. Tell me about making that selection. Was that conscious? Were you looking for that, or is that just your aesthetic?
Well, I think everybody who sees my films think that they all look pretty good, because that is one thing that's the thing that I am the most, besides the score, the film looking beautiful is very, very important to me. Tal Lazar, our DP that we had, who shot both Elana, Undone, and A Perfect Ending, and I would work with in a heartbeat. He did a lot of wonderful things with the camera and really understood that capturing nuance and all those elements of women that are so gorgeous and beautiful and delicious was of the most important to me.
What I thought from a producer's standpoint was interesting with Tao. He was very economical with the way he used his setup.
Yeah. Yes, he was.
And he actually comes from a military background. So he charted everything to the nth degree. And then he knew, well, we can do it if we do it in this order. I can reuse this camera setup. Yeah. And we'll bang, bang, bang. We'll crank that out.
Remember when we block shot the meeting in the backyard? Yeah. Remember when he block shot that out? It was like boom, 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 boom. We had to, because we were running out of time, and it's the worst thing to do to actors, but we had to do it. And he just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I mean, it really, but that from an economic standpoint, it made a huge difference for us. We were on such a tight schedule.
Oh, I know.
And he being that kind of military background where everything was hyper organized, he knew where he was going well before we actually ended up on set. That was a huge
brilliant.
Yeah.
Aside from budget, which is always the biggest problem for independent film, what were the challenges that you faced 10 years ago trying to bring this story to life on screen?
Well, money was always an issue. You're always dealing with that, especially, you always want to make things better, when you're in post. We did reshoots and stuff along those lines. It's just money. Money is really tough for us.
We had that other experience where, do you remember when Nicar came down with walking pneumonia?
Oh my God, yes, that too.
Yeah, that was a huge blew us up entirely, because we were only 3 days into shooting or 4 days into shooting, and her doctor's like, you absolutely can't do anything or go anywhere. 2 days. It was like 2 or 3 days, and they jacked her full of
that CPAC.
Yeah.
They put a CPAC on her and a couple of other things to try to get her.
Oh my God. But we had to completely rearrange our shooting schedule because of it. Which on a
performance remember, because then we did the underwater stuff earlier and all of that kind of thing. But her ability to work through having walking pneumonia and in the meeting scene, which she was so hysterically funny in, and then doing that heavy duty scene with Sam, remember, up in his little thing, his little salon unit.
She's a highly professional actress, and she really grew. But she was like, I'll come anyway. And I was like, no, you're not going to come anyway. You're going to stay home and get better, because we don't want, T-Bird getting sick, because that would have been a problem. But you can die from pneumonia.
Yeah, it's very, very dangerous.
Anyway, we made her stay home, and we reorganized everything. But that was a really scary couple of days. Can we get the schedule organized in a way that we use the days in the most efficient way? Because we only had 12 days of shooting.
And remember, the first day we shot, we lost the whole first 6 hours because our generator blew all of our electrical.
Did you say you shot this movie in 12 days?
Yeah. With a pickup day. Well, I would call it like 12 and a half with a day of pickup. Yeah. We ended up squeezing those water scenes were done on our day off. And Trace T-Bird was happy to come in and we're like, we're gonna just do a bunch of you. Come on in.
We're gonna shoot you in the
water shots. So we want to make sure that we got them, and yeah, so we ended up squeezing an extra 6 hours in, I think, that day. But it was incredible what was accomplished. It was.
So let's bring it up to the present day. A lot has changed in the country, and for LGBT Americans, relationships are a little different now. But this seems to still have some sort of resonance. So tell me about the difference in response you might be getting from audiences as they're seeing your film celebrating its 10th anniversary.
I think the soulmate love story is timeless. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so successful. I also think Jane holds a lot of the reasons it's successful, because she had worked with Tracy, T-Bird, and Nakar in the Touch, a short she had done, and saw their chemistry and how well they worked together, and had asked to read. I wanted to read Tracy no matter what, because I had seen some of her work prior. And so she was a done deal right away. We cast her. And then we kept looking for Elana and kept looking for Elana. And one of the reasons I didn't want to go down the Nakar path is because the way I'd written her was as a white American wife, like Marina was. And we would have to then rewrite for her ethnicity, which ended up being wonderful as it turned out. But it was like Jane said, I'll have her come in, just come.
I had to beg for it. I was like, trust me, the chemistry between these two women is so undefinable. It's so good.
And so amazing.
Together. So I told Nakar, I said, just come down. You don't have to read with anybody else. Just because we were in callbacks, and I was like, just come down at 5 o'clock and just read with T-Bird. And, and then I won't ask anything else of you. And then I went out to get, the next person, which was Nakar. And I walked her in, and Nicole, I tell people it's like we had Tourette's for a minute, because all of a sudden these went out of her mouth, and she just was like, I think you said, my God, you're fucking beautiful.
I said, so beautiful. Yeah. I said, you're fucking beautiful. You're right.
Yeah. And Nakar was, of course, just like, oh, well, thank you. But the rest of us,
because she turned around and she had this big hair, and she turned around and she just that big smile, and I was like, oh my God!
It just fell out of her mouth. It fell out of her mouth. It was
fell out of my chair, fell out of my mouth. Just was like, oh my God, you are amazing.
That's a good sign. Then
they actually did. I don't know if they kissed in that audition. I think they did.
They kissed. Because they kissed then when we did the audition that is in the album vault.
Right.
We have on Elana Undone 10.com. And so Jane,
the chemistry was just
beyond. It was beyond. So I was like, I called Jane on the way back and said, this is it. You've got to convince Marina, because we had in our mind that it was going to be somebody that was more Marina like. And so Jane did that for me. Thank you very much.
It was funny. Casting is so much fun, but that was just a hysterical moment. Yes, so honest and so natural. It just it was funny.
Yeah.
Another part of your story.
From that moment on, I knew that she was it, and the two of them were phenomenal.
And their performances are so real that I think that is right, Nicole. Another one of the reasons that the film still feels fresh, but also that it really resonates with people, because you really believe. Yeah. Like, these women make you really believe that connection is real, that love is real. Yeah. And, movies are made or broken by the casting.
Yeah.
Another part of your storytelling device that helps it feel more current than it might as a 10-year-old film is the various couples we see being interviewed and how you paired those couples up.
Yeah.
It's very 2020 in many ways.
Well, the great thing about those soulmate things is I was wanting to do a book on soulmates. In fact, I was speaking with this agent about it, and I'd done all this research, so I had some of these stories already. So it was wonderful to be able to add those in. And when we were doing the first cuts, we did not have all of the interstitial pieces with Sam Harris, that when he talks about what does a soulmate make, and these are the criteria. So that was sort of like the big fix for all of our problems, to put those in intermittently. Some people hated them, but most people loved them. So I think that was the thing that I felt really pulled the film then all together at the end of the day. because, you know, you have those times when you're in editing where you're looking at your project and you're saying, this isn't working, you know, or this isn't working as well as I'd like for it to work. I think that really helped pull it together.
So were they actors that you cast, or were they couples?
Some of them were, no, all of them were actors. And some of them were the two people who had multiple personality or DID disorder. They're a married couple. So it was wonderful working with them. They were a lot of fun. And then Jane brought in the elderly, Edith Fields. The older woman and the older guy. And then you brought in Lawrence. I keep calling him Lawrence.
It's all right. Yeah.
Your friend. It reminds me of Lawrence Fishburne or whatever his name. Yeah. And that incredible actress who's the basketball star. What's her name again?
Yeah, I forget. I'm sorry. We were considering her for the role of Dave, but we ended up going with Mary, and it just seemed right to offer her a role because she's such a good actress. Yeah. Really grounded. And
then working with Mary Wells, then we put her in a perfect ending as well, because working with Mary Wells is one of the funnest things you will ever do.
Yeah, and I put her in Crazy Bitches.
Yeah, you've got her in Crazy Bitches.
And Meth Head. She was in Crazy Bitches and Meth Head. And I'm trying to think of something else to do. Oh, she's like, I have attached to my Scottish project. Yeah, I mean, Mary's great. Having her on set is just
I know.
So much fun. She's such a good person.
So what lessons do you think you can share from this film for new filmmakers? Because this film festival, like many film festivals, draws a lot of aspiring filmmakers, student filmmakers. The North Carolina School of the Arts has that. Have you been to Winston-Salem?
Oh,
they have a huge backlot. Like it looks like a movie studio.
It's gorgeous. So, I was there just this last year with More Beautiful.
So what would you share with filmmakers if they want to make a film that stands the test of time for its 10th anniversary?
Follow your heart. Always do, regardless of, Jane knows this better than anybody, regardless of your friends, your lovers, anybody that's involved with anything to do with a film, you always have to do what's best for the project. And you have to figure out a way to understand really what that is and get yourself out of your own way. That's the thing that I've learned the most, I think, is that you have to get out of your own way and always do what's best for the project, period.
Yeah.
Like switching the ethnicity of a character so that
like that. Having a fight with your wife over it for 3 days. She's going to leave you if you cast her. So Jane has to take care of marriage therapy for us.
Fortunately, that wasn't her reaction.
Pardon?
I said, fortunately, that wasn't her reaction.
Oh, it was the first, when I wanted to cast her at first, it was because it was so different than what we had decided.
Yeah.
But we could not find Elana.
That's, you know, one of the lovely moments in Jane's life that happened throughout the shooting, where I was like, can you please get Marina to change her mind about this? Can you please get Nicole to change her mind about this? Can you please? Yeah, okay.
Poor Jane. She's like, I'll produce your movie. I'm not really sure if I want to produce much. I really want to stay in, directing. And I was like, okay, well, cool. So she produces a movie, and the poor gal has to go through, seriously, she has to live through Marina and I and our kids through this entire saga.
But at the heart of it was fun. At the heart of it, it was really fun.
Oh, yeah, we had a blast.
It was really hard to shoot. And I always say when I'm on a set, I'm happier than I am otherwise.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it is, even if I feel like crying, and I have cried on a set before, but I would also tell people when you say get out of your way, I also want to say get out of your way if circumstances change in a way that you don't like. If you can't get everything that you want, it's one of the things that Nicole was great about, because, there are a lot of times where I'm like, we're going to have to think creatively about this, Nicole, because we can't afford XYZ. And I see a lot of young filmmakers. I've experienced it. I've heard stories from other producer friends of mine who, they see this idea of a director being an auteur, and they have to have what they have to have, right? And they can hold up a set or a production for a while and waste valuable time trying to get that, black SUV that they wanted instead of the gray one. And you know, when you get your $20 million, yeah, okay, get your black SUV. But if what we can get is the free gray one that the DP was driving, take the free thing, and don't worry, because ultimately thinking outside the box is how you get to better ideas. You know, whatever you think when you're in an analytical kind of mind way and you're trying to figure something out, I'm sure those ideas mostly are good. But when you're forced to think creatively and you're forced to think outside your comfort zone, you come up with things that are unexpected. And so don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to fall off the chart and think of something.
Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail.
How do you know?
You have to figure out the ways that you succeed. For sure.
How do you know which are the elements worth standing your ground for, and where to be flexible? How do you figure out which fall into which category?
I always apply the what's best for the film thing, and then I go to battle or I let go.
Sometimes I will say, okay, like I really need that extra day of Steadicam. I really, really need that extra day of Steadicam. But I'll give something else up. What can I trade for that the cost of that extra day? Because I know where I can sacrifice, and I'd rather know ahead of time that I'm going to sacrifice it and make those conscious choices. And I think, yeah, always do what's best for the film, but also know that there's almost, as long as you're being true to the story, as long as the story is served, there's almost no choice you can make that's going to screw things up. Take care of your cast, make sure your actors know where they're going and what they're doing at all times, and know where you're going, and be ready to make changes, and just know that those changes are going to be supported because the story works and you're supporting the story. I think that's for me, I always follow that.
So when you do these sort of press things or Q&As at festivals, the first time around, you might have gotten one set of questions, and this time around, you're probably getting similar questions from each instance. But there's got to be something you hope that you would always get a chance to say, someone would leave you time to say, and those are often so programmed and strict for time. We aren't here. So what is it that you would like to say to the people who have just watched your film or are about to watch it, or can take a lesson from your film that you don't always get a chance to say?
Jane?
Well, I would say first, thanks for taking a chance on an independent film that didn't have a big budget and didn't at that time have actors who were known. You know, as independent filmmakers making movies at this budget level, part of the struggle is finding the audience. And so everybody who steps out and goes to a festival like yours and sits in the theater gives us an opportunity to see our movie with an audience, which we normally don't get. And I want everybody to know how valuable that is, how much it matters to us, how important it is to keep us going to the next movie and the next movie. So to say thank you for all those people that step out to the theater. And if you can't step out to the theater, and certainly none of us can now, to spend the money, to rent the movie, to tweet about it, Instagram your favorite picture from it, whatever it is, follow. These kinds of things make so much difference to an independent film. And I'm not saying that now because, you know, Elana needs that. We're out and about and living our lives. It's just a thing that I think people don't understand how important their support is. So to say thank you and just keep doing it, keep finding the independence, keep finding these little movies.
How about you, Nicole?
I agree with pretty much everything Jane's said. I also have to do my own little pitch here for people. People say, how can we support your work? Jane, why don't you give your website after I'm done here? But we just launched and revamped a launch that we did a couple of months ago. We just revamped and relaunched Nicole Kahn Film Global, and it's a site that we're trying to make as a destination hub for all things lesbian content, productions, all of those sorts of things. Plus, we're using a hybrid funding model that we created that is essentially created for the lesbian pocketbook, for people to say, okay, I can afford this much if I want to see a film every 18 to 24 months. I can do $4.99 a month, and I get these, you know, exclusive photos and clips and all of that sort of stuff. We have all these different levels and donor gifts and those sorts of things. But we also have what's called a production board, which is where we want to try to put all of the lesbian productions that we're aware of. And we're just starting to put that piece together with it. I ended up partnering with an incredible CEO and her wife, Renee Porter and Laura Rossi, who are running the company for me. So I can now go back into doing what I love to do, which is create. And so that's sort of what I'd love people to go check out, NicoleKahnFilmGlobal.com. Thank you very much, Jane.
First, I want to ask you, do you have a new script, Nicole?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Yes, I do. I have a script called Do We Not Bleed, my next feature. And something very fun, who I'm talking to one of our dear friends this week about, Jane, is the lesbian dating show.
Right. That's good. Oh, good. Who are you talking to?
It's really, really a fun, ridiculous romp, not PC, just fun for the girls. And we're going to try to get a lot of lesbians involved.
Oh, wait. I'm going to borrow that. So what? Lesbians. I have to adopt that phrase.
Sweetheart, that's been around since when?
I haven't heard that before.
Since
Hollywood. I think Hollywood is probably the only place anybody knows it, but that's a fairly common reference in
in our town, because the lesbians are the ones who, you know, have the profile, like not Nakar, she's not a lesbian, but T-Bird, and, you know, some of those women have real high profiles. And so, you know, that you want to try to pepper them inside the lesbian dating show, but it's just going to be a lot of fun. We're co-producing this with Telefilms and the gals from Klexicon. So we're very, very excited, and we're all very jazzed about this project.
That's cool.
And I learned a new word today that I can spread around Colorado. Jane?
Oh, well, okay. So just to let everybody know, I have a web series called Crazy Bitches.
And it's awesome.
It is awesome. It's very, very awesome. Right now it's available on Apple TV, Google Play, Amazon, and Vimeo, I think. And then it comes out on the and on Tello. And then it comes on the OML channel in November. And it's 18 episodes of horror comedy. It's a little raunchy. It's very sexy. It's kind of scary sometimes, but it's perfect for the Halloween time period, which we're entering into right now. So if you're sequestered at home and you're not going to be able to go walk around and do your thing, or even just leading up to get you in the spirit of things, it's a great watch. And then I'm working on a horror, psychological horror thriller, which we're trying to fund right now, that I co-wrote with Guinevere Turner. And she's going to star, I'm going to direct. It's a very, very creepy little film about a woman who is a romance novelist. My little inside joke, or what I think is funny, is she's a romance novelist. She's a lesbian, but she's writing romance novels for straight women, which I thought was funny. And she has paranoid personality disorder. So before you meet her, she's gotten in a jealous rage and bashed her wife's head in with a romance novel award.
Oh, I love it.
He's buried her in the backyard because she doesn't want anybody to know. And she feels horrible because she really loves her. Like, she really feels bad about this. So she's stuck in the house and she's slowly deteriorating. And her publisher sends over his assistant, who, unbeknownst to him, was the catalyst for the fight, because she was convinced that her wife was having an affair with this young girl. So when the young girl shows up, her sanity completely leaves her. But it's a whole series of, it's weird and it's interesting and it's super, super sexy. And Miriam Hassler's in it, and Emily Goss is in it, and my friend David Famera, who's on LA's Finest. And I have a couple of open roles I'm still going after, but yeah, I mean, it's a really cool. So I'm hoping we're going to make that during COVID time, because it's one house, it's fairly contained. We'll see, but I'm raising money for that now. And yeah, so check out Crazy Bitches. And
is there a hashtag for Elana Undone's 10th anniversary that we should be using?
We were doing
Undone
10. Yeah.
Say that again. Say it again.
Elana Undone 10.
Elana Undone 10.
Yeah. And
well, I'm so glad we had a chance to
at ElanaUndone10.com.
Yeah.
The anniversary pieces.
I'm awfully glad we had a chance to visit after the attendees got to see your film, and learn about some of your new projects and some of the lessons you brought forward from Elana Undone. Thanks for making time for us.
May I say one more thing?
Sure.
The Winston-Salem Festival itself is one of the best, bar none, run festivals in the country. Rex Welton is like the king of festivals. He really is. The way he runs that festival and the way he takes care of his filmmakers, you guys are so amazing. So people, please support this festival because it is one of the best run in the country. Absolutely. So.
That's the soundbite for the promo for this interview.
Well, I can never rave enough about Rex and this festival because it's just, I've always loved it. I love being there. You guys take care of us really, really well. So
last year was my first year visiting them, and I've become a devotee ever since then as well. So I'm glad you had a chance to say that.
Yeah.
Thanks for making time for me today.
Our pleasure. Yeah.
It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Same here.